Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Here we are for episode 2 of season 2, and we are on the conspiracy theory Iceberg, baby. So let's just get into it. Just a quick recap for anybody. I'm going to try to do this at the beginning of every episode. So you've probably seen a conspiracy theory Iceberg video at some point in the past. Maybe not, I don't know. But just so you know, we do it a little bit different in this season. So the way it works is it's just going to progressively add more topics. So tier 1, I cover 1 topic, tier 2, 2 topics, tier 3, 3 topics, and you get the idea. And also the criteria that I pick it from is either A, I think that there's some type of truth to it, and I try to give examples and scientific studies and whatnot that have taken place in the past. Another reason is some of them are just interesting. I think some of them are just cool. Some of them are weird. I think some of them could be great movie or TV show ideas. So if you know anybody that's a writer, I don't know, point them here for inspiration for some crazy, ridiculous sci-fi crap. And number 3, some of them are just goofy and kind of funny. So that's usually the criteria I pick. But other than that, let's get into it. DMT Entities speaks about the different type of mysterious and otherworldly entities that people have claimed to have seen or encountered or even had conversations or bad encounters with when it comes to using the drug called DMT. As mentioned in the previous episode on the conspiracy theory Iceberg, we talked a little bit about the pineal gland as well, and it goes back and forth on whether people believe it true or not, but they say that the pineal gland also secretes tiny trace amounts of DMT, usually while we are sleeping. Some people have even said this is how we are able to dream. Now, again, the science is kind of, still up in the air about whether or not that's valid. But the reason why I bring that up along with DMT is because many people see some of these same entities, whether they're doing DMT or whether they are in like sleep paralysis or something like that. What makes this a conspiracy theory, or at least puts it on this list, is because not only do people see entities, but even without having these conversations between each other, they somehow see these same entities. And it's not like normal stuff. We're talking like stuff like machine elves, or I think something was called like the Queen of Light. Like it's these weird entities, but the fascination comes in whether it's coming from sleep paralysis or, like I said, coming from DMT itself. Somehow people end up encountering these same entities, and they end up at these same surreal locations that don't exist here in our current reality, but instead they say it's in some other dimension. These people believe that they are going to interdimensional worlds, and they're meeting other entities that belong to those worlds. I mean, even crazy enough, I've never done DMT myself or anything like that, but there was a time, I think in like 2011, 2012, it was one of those 2 years where I was having the craziest sleep paralysis episodes like ever. And it was the first time I ever got sleep paralysis. Like, I was so confused when I woke up from it the first time that I almost completely forgot about it. I thought I was dreaming or something. And then it kind of just started coming back to me slowly. And I'm like, no, I definitely was like seeing something. And I saw, what scared the hell out of me was I saw shadow people. And it was very weird. They were like standing like in various points in my bedroom and outside my bedroom, just like watching me sleep. Freakiest shit I've ever encountered in my life, and I don't think anything could top it, to be honest with you. Like, when you see, people made out of just dark smoke like staring at you, like nothing can really top that. It's very freaky. But these are also entities that people have claimed to see while on DMT. They've claimed to see shadow people, or an entity called the Hat Man, which, thank God I never saw the Hat Man, but the Hat Man is very associated with shadow people. But again, yeah, this is something that people just keep claiming to see over and over again. They keep seeing the same entities, even without, like I said, any recollection. I didn't know anything about shadow people before I had that sleep paralysis thing, but somehow they appeared in my dreams, and they kept saying they wanted to use my body. That was freaky. I probably should have left that out. A group of scientists held a survey. Basically, they just kind of asked simple questions like, what type of entity did you encounter? How was the experience? A lot of these people said positive things. They said that they were like guides, or they were trying to be helpful. They were loving. They were warmful, and, just overall good entities. They understood that they were, a fish out of water, someone that didn't belong in the area. And instead of trying to prey upon them, they wanted to guide them around. 41% of those correspondents recorded that they felt fear. But they also said that they felt joy when they encountered these entities, which, again, bro, if you're seeing machine elves, whatever the hell, you know what I mean? Of course, I'm going to feel fear because, again, like I said, you're walking around and you're seeing things that you've never seen in your entire life. You're seeing machine elves. You're seeing people that look like jesters. You're seeing shadow people. You're seeing, I think they said it was called the Mother Goddess, and she had like her own like underlings under her. So there's some kind of Mother Queen Goddess in this DMT realm or whatever. So yeah, I bet they do feel fear. I bet they do. 69% of the correspondents said that they did receive some type of like messaging in their head, some kind of message or whatever. And 19% said that they even received a prediction of the future that came true. So yeah, but more or less, that's DMT entities. It just kind of speaks about, who are these magical, mythical creatures that are communicating with us through some kind of interdimensional medium. And secondly, why is it that people who have never had these conversations with one another can sit here and have these same similar type of encounters with these same descriptions of these interdimensional beings? Strange stuff. Elites using blood banks is a theory that, honestly, it's like, this is one of those theories. It's kind of like Pizzagate, right? It's like, I don't know if that's like the nail on the head, the exact conspiracy theory that's true, but it's like stuff around it is still kind of true. So it basically says that elites, the rich, the powerful, they use blood banks. And at these blood banks, they just kind of use it mostly for rejuvenation. So they have their own, either they have their own blood banks, or they have some kind of like black market where they are taking blood from blood banks to use for rejuvenation and God knows what else. This kind of goes into what I mentioned in the last video. And remember, I swear, every time I say it, it just becomes more true and more true. So when we were talking about transhumanism, right, I mentioned that the last thing that, one of these rich, elite, powerful people would want to do is die. That's the last thing they want to do. They got millions of dollars. They're the most powerful people in the world, most influential people in the world. They can do literally whatever they want, almost in the realm of physics and whatever. But anyways, I digress. The last thing they want to do is age. The last thing they want to do is die, grow old, whatever. So that's where this blood bank stuff comes in. It's not so much as ritualistic like you would think. This is more or less for rejuvenation, like I mentioned. So what they'll do is they'll try to take the blood of younger people, and it's almost like a dialysis. So they try to take the blood of younger people and basically replace it with the blood that they have in themselves. And some of them claim, it's supposed to help with anti-aging because they got newer blood that, allows them to stay younger. So this is something that is a thing. Like, it's a thing. You can find various celebrities talking about drinking blood or, having this kind of blood filtering thing going on. And there's even like some kind of rich dude, I forgot his name off the top of my head, but he's using his son's blood to rejuvenate himself. And again, it's just so they can stay here longer and, be a stain on society. I didn't say that, but whatever. Now, of course, like I said, in my opinion, I think it's mostly for rejuvenation, but some fringe theories have talked about, rituals and, satanic cults and, yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, do what you wish with that. You can run wild on how you feel about it. Again, this is going to sound dark. I feel like if it was for like a ritual, they would just like use a live person and sacrifice them. I know that sounds crazy and dark, but I feel like, I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking, but yeah, I don't really think it's for that. But I did mention this, and I think, there's no other place and time to really kind of talk about it. But I do believe that this does open a greater umbrella of things. I did mention in the last episode as well. Actually, no, it was 2 episodes ago in the last season. I mentioned that there was like a pipeline when it came to some of these satanic rituals, like the Franklin scandal and even Epstein. I mentioned that there was like a pipeline. So I'm going to just lay the pipeline out right now for you. Whoa. And I'm going to explain what I mean. So the pipeline is they take these, young victims, right? And they do these ritualistic practices, right? And sometimes these kids go home and sometimes they don't. And when they don't go home, that's when things get a little more wicked. So they've already done the abuse, right? And for whatever reason, one or the other, there may not be an ideal way for them to leave and go home. So they become sacrifices. And again, these sacrifices were mentioned in the Franklin scandal, if you want to go look that up. These are the victims' accounts, not mine, not hearsay from anybody else outside. This is what the victims are saying. They're saying that younger children are being sacrificed. And from there, that's where I personally think an illegal black market for organs opens up. Now, that's where we're going to leave that theory because I already sound crazy and we got so many more entries to go. Now, I'm not going to lie. For this next one, it's called The Plane of Jars. Now, I did mention that I started this series on another YouTube channel, but I never finished it, right? So I'm not going to lie to you. I think I did a phenomenal job explaining The Plane of Jars in that last video. So I'm going to just edit and splice myself in right here and explain that part. So here you go. Sprinkled through the valleys and plains of the Zhangquang Plateau, hope I said that right, in Laos, there are these jars made out of various different types of rocks, and they're just sprinkled throughout this entire place, which is very strange. One, when I say a lot, like it's like thousands of them. Like, I can't make that up. It's thousands of them sprinkled throughout here. And nobody really knows of their origins or how they got there or who put them there. A French researcher by the name of Madeleine Colani concluded that all of this whole area had to be some type of burial practice, and that's what the jars were purposed for. And a few researchers, or archaeologists, I believe, actually kind of backed up the claims because whenever they did some digging around the area, they were able to find other type of ceramics, burial goods, and even human remains around the site. To this day, it is considered to be one of the most prolific and important archaeological pieces in the Southeastern Asian hemisphere, or area, not hemisphere, that's not the word. And now that we got the overview out of the way, let us get into some of the quick facts so I can really kind of reel you in as to why this is weird. Because I'm not just talking about some like mason jars in a field, not thousands of those. No. The shortest out of all of the jars is about 4 feet tall. That's the baby one, okay? The largest, biggest jar is about 7.5 to 8-ish feet tall. I saw some reports that were saying 10 feet tall, but like, I didn't see any jars that were actually 10 feet tall. And you can find measurements of some of them online, and you can find where people have actually like measured them and weighed them. And boy, the weight, okay. On average, the smallest jar weighs about 4,000 pounds. I'll say that again. On average, because there's thousands of them, the smallest one they found weighs 4,000 pounds. Okay, follow me. The biggest one they found, which is the one that was about 7-ish, 8-ish feet tall, weighed 21,000 pounds. Like, I really haven't dealt with too much stuff that weighs tons. But I just want to put this into perspective for you, how big these jars were. And secondly, I want to add on that these jars are what I said earlier. They're basically prehistoric. Whenever they dated these jars, they found out that they had to have been created somewhere between about 1260 BC to about, I think, 660 BC. So strangely enough, that was right around the time that the Iron Age actually began. So listen, check this out. Sorry, I'm gonna look at my phone for this to make sure I get it right, but I really want to hammer in how heavy these jars were for people in the prehistoric time to be just, you know what, I'll get to that in a second. But just think about this, okay? The smallest jar, right, is 4,000 pounds. Listen, a 2022 Ford F-150 weighs about 4,021 pounds, upwards to about 5,014 pounds, okay? Just one of them, all right? Now, what makes this even funnier to me is the towing capacity for a 2022 Ford F-150 is 11,300 pounds. Okay, so, you know, a Ford truck could lift like maybe, I don't know what, 2 in like a broken one. Like how big were they? Like, bro, I don't know. I just find it freakier that like I've really never even heard anybody talk about it. Like it almost sounds made up, but this is a thing. Like you can go to Laos and you can actually find this field. I mean, there's plenty of videos of people and pictures on YouTube and everywhere of people going to this field of these gigantic jars. And what makes it more weird is that there's actually a few lids. Most of the jars don't have lids at all. But there's like a few lids that are kind of scattered throughout the site, and on the lids, some of them have symbols, and they range anywhere between like random geometrical like patterns to like symbols of humans on top of the lids. So it's, I mean, your guess is as good as, I don't know what they were putting in these jars. Whenever they found all of them, they were of course pretty much empty. But yeah, gigantic jars that are, you know, like basically the weight of a 2022 Ford F-150. I sound like I'm advertising at this point. I'm not advertising, but I just had to use something as a reference to like drive home the point that at the smallest level, you just have a field full of F-150s that are just sprinkled throughout this field, but in the form of jars. So earlier I kind of alluded to something, but I wanted to save it for right now. And that's basically that these jars were placed there. As in, whenever the archaeological people did whatever, I don't know, archaeological space magic voodoo to date this and figure out whatever they do with lasers and stuff, I don't know. But whenever they did all of that stuff, they determined that these jars, where they found them, was not the original spot of the jars. They actually traced it and realized that these jars had been moved from a location, get this, over about 5 miles away. So not only were these gigantic 2022 Ford F-150 weighted jars made somewhere else, but somehow they moved thousands of them to another location 5 miles away. Because of how many jars that are around in this particular area, they've actually decided to basically kind of divide them up into sites, right? So there's roughly about 90 sites, and within each site ranges a number of jars, anywhere between the number 1 all the way to the number 400 for each different site, which is a lot. So the jars were made out of about 5 different types of materials. You have sandstone, you have limestone, granite, and I can't remember the other 2. One of them looked, I didn't even know that was like a stone or something. I think it was like conglomerate, something like that. And I forgot the last one was like maybe breccia or Phrygia. I mean, you can go look it up. It's there. I didn't write it down because it didn't sound common. So But also another very important thing is still to this day, they can't really tell how the jars were made. So there's a few different methods that they think that they could have made them with. They either think that maybe since it was during the Iron Age, maybe someone actually chiseled them. But that would mean that that was a lot of stone. So there's like another method where they think that maybe they took like, I don't even know how, but they kind of just like molded them. I don't know if that's possible either. I don't really know a lot about making gigantic jars, so I don't know whoever those people made it. They did it. They did it. That's all I know. That's all archaeologists know. So believe it or not, it's going to get a lot more weird than that. And with everything that I just said before, that's just literally the quick facts, and it's already very strange of a story, right? So it gets a little bit more weird, and this is going to involve war and a few other aspects, tales and legends as well, as to why this would probably land on a conspiracy theory iceberg list. So let's get into that, the background and the urban legends in the area. Between 1959 and 1975, there was the Laotian War. And this war was between two parties, of course. That's kind of how it works most of the time, with a little bit of outside interference. And there was a few major battles in it, meaning a lot of explosions and shooting and whatnot, and, you know, other things other than just political nonsense. And during that, the Plain of Jars field was a part of that action. So another name that the Laotian War goes by is the Secret War. And that's what we in the United States call it, because we were also aiding in that war, but we didn't want them to know that we were, because we weren't supposed to be, because of some kind of treaty or something, or we just weren't supposed to be there. So we were sending troops in kind of like under the radar. And under the radar. Listen to this BS. So during this time, I believe the years of 1963 upwards to 1975, which is basically the end of the war, right? We dropped so many bombs and ammunitions. So during that time period, the United States dropped about 3 million tons of ordnances, or basically bombs, explosives, over different Laotian sites around that area, and of course, including the Plain of Jars. 3 million tons? Do you know how many 2022 Ford F-150? Okay, no, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not gonna do it anymore. But seriously, on a serious note, we dropped so many ordinances, so many bombs, and I think they said even landmines sprinkled in over the area and the region, that to this day, there's actually a lot of the area that is just off limits. You can't go there, literally for your safety, because there are literal bombs sprinkled throughout that field that will, you know, unalive you. So there is a local Laotian legend that states that the jars belonged to a king from way back then, who was actually the king of a race of, dare I say it, giants. Which, as crazy as that sounds, like it would make sense. Like, I can't stress how huge these jars are. I mean, you're looking at the biggest one is 7.5 to 8 feet tall, and it was somehow transported about 5 miles from its original location, which, boy, I never would have thought I'd literally be giving credibility to the theory of giants. I gotta question my life a little bit more, man. But yes, the legend basically says that they believe that maybe that there was a guy. They even had a name for him. It was like Kun Xiong or something like that. I'm probably terrible with pronunciation, but hey, I'm trying here. But yeah, they state that they belong to him, and the jars were actually used for alcohol. So apparently there was some kind of great battle back then. And they never said who he was battling, which is even more weird. But there was some kind of battle that him and his giant people were fighting. So they created these gigantic jars and filled them up with a whole bunch of alcohol and just got jacked up for however long, I guess, giant warriors get tore up from on celebrating. So that's kind of the Laotian urban legend about the jars. But with the combination of course, the urban Laotian legends, and with the fact that we, the United States, dropped 3 million tons of ordinances on the area, people kind of started suspecting that, maybe this was a cover-up. Maybe that's why the United States actually wanted to participate when, of course, they had no business and they shouldn't have been there, because they literally broke like treaties to go over there and fight this war anyways. And what for? Like, what did we really get out of it compared to all of the damage and all of the resources that we put into just bombing the mess out of this area for no reason? Or not a reason for us anyways. So that's basically the plane of jars. That's kind of how that went down. On to the next one. Thank you very much, me. All right, now back to me. So we are now going to move on to tier 4. So we got 4 more topics for you, and we are going to start out with holotropic breath-work. Holotropic breath-work speaks to a series of instructions of breathing, and it says that if you breathe in certain patterns and certain rhythms, this can do different things to your mind. It can literally make you transcend. Now, when I say transcend, I'm not talking about going Super Saiyan. I'm not talking about unlocking chakras or something along those lines, but transcendence is almost in a way making you a little bit more wise. It's allowing you to think a little bit more clearly and have just a more concise forward way of thinking. It makes it to where you are less angry. It makes it to where you are more problem solving and just overall a more mature person. Very interesting. But they talk about other aspects with this breath work as well. In my personal opinion, I think it kind of to a degree makes sense, just because you're getting more oxygen flowing to your brain, so that may temporarily cause you to think differently, and because of that you may just find yourself in a more calming mood, right? But yeah, let's just take a little bit more technical dive into the inner workings of it. Scientists have done experiments on holotropic breath work, and they have shown that there were signs from people. And like I said, it's more for temperament, but also self-transcendence. Now, the thing that freaked me out the most is looking through this paperwork is that there is a self-transcendence scale. So just so you know, there is a scale out there of self-transcendence, type of shit they don't teach you in school, I guess. Bro, looking at these scientific papers is crazy. It's just interesting to know about all of the studies that take place that we just may not talk about often, but scientists are out there looking into it. So yeah, because of that, there is a self-transcendence. Now, what was interesting was they showed positive results all around. There were just all around positive results. People became more self-aware. People became more self-transcendent and overall had a better temperament. But what was more interesting about it was they said that there were great results from people that were either not doing holotropic breath work at all and trying it for the experiment, or they were novices at it and they had just started out. They didn't have too much, background in it, but they started. But those people still had, leaps of progress in these indicators. Now, I'm going to look down at my phone for a second because I want to read everything that they were trying to measure for us so you understand what this whole improvement in self-awareness and improvement in self-transcendence is, right? So bear with me for a second. So these are the benchmarks. These are the things that they were measuring these people on before and after holotropic breath work. They were measuring them on sensibility, idealistic, transpersonal, faithfulness, flexibleness, self-forgetfulness, and creative with a higher spiritual awareness. They also stated that people with higher self-transcendence were more wise and patient with more experience for equanimity. So, these are some of the things that they found. They also mentioned that people held grudges less whenever they did the holotropic breath work. There's plenty guides out there for holotropic breath works. So if you want to give this a crack, I don't know, maybe for a month straight, do you become more aware, self-transcend yourself, become who you should be less angry at people, I guess, I don't know, or whatever, I don't know. But anyways, I do want to at least read a little bit about those instructions as well. So if you want to try it at home, you can at least look and see what they did in the study and then base that off of what other YouTube videos they have out there for instructions. But they would say to achieve holotropic breath work, it is said you need to lie down on a mat or just some kind of comfortable flat surface. Once there, close your eyes, get comfortable, and begin to breathe fast and deep in an even circular pattern. Don't do any pauses between inhales and exhales. You're free to do any type of movements or sounds that come naturally from you. You can do this for minutes or even hours. So, like I said, there's probably all types of videos out there. They say it helps with stress, it helps with anxiety. I think even some cases they did it for people that had trauma and that helped them out as well. I ain't no doctor, so don't be taking my advice. You know what I mean? I ain't here to offer you no advice. I'm just saying it's worth a shot. I don't know. Give it a try, whatever. But the other thing I wanted to point out too was there was a study as well on this. Again, I'm trying to hit you with as many studies as possible. As the last video, I'll have sources in the description if you want to go click on anything and read through it yourself as well. So, according to this, they did a holotropic breath work and it was used on 11,000 patients in a psychiatric hospital. And they did this over the course of 12 years. And out of those 11,000 inpatients coming and going, they documented 482 of these patients, and their results were 82% of them having, what the hell is that word? 82% of them having mythopoetic experiences. I'm going to try to put a definition here about what mythopoetic experiences could mean. 16% of them reported experiencing prior life experiences, with 2 of those inpatients saying they had perinatal experiences, and only 2% reported no experiences. So out of all of those people, only 2% said they didn't get anything out of it. Interesting. Now, what I did want to point out, if you go deeper into breath work as like a whole, there are actually different types of breath works out there. Like there's box breathing. I think there's the 4-7-8 method. And the 4-7-8 method is actually one that I used to do myself. This is something that kind of helps you go to sleep. So if you find yourself not being able to go to sleep very well, you can try the 4-7-8 method. I think it's 4-7-8, maybe it's 7-4-8 or 8-4, some combination of those numbers, it'll pop up. I want to say even the military themselves used box breathing at one point. I don't know if they still do. It's called box breathing because if you do it, it makes like a box pattern. Basically, you inhale your breath for 4 seconds and then you hold it for 4 seconds. You exhale for 4 seconds and then you hold that for 4 seconds and you just keep going. And then, like I said, it'll kind of make this box pattern. That's why they call it box breathing. But I think they said that helps with focusing and calmness and whatnot. So I don't know who in the military does it. If I had to guess, that sounds like sniper work, but I'm not a sniper and I don't know anything. So you tell me if you've ever heard of that and you were in the military. But yeah, that's holotropic breath work. And again, like I mentioned, there's other type of breath works out there as well. You can look into them. I know there's a Wim Hof method. I think the Wim Hof might be more related to holotropic itself though, because that's a lot of ins and outs really quickly for quite some time. But yeah, try breathing differently and that can maybe help you out in life. Hopefully I will be done with topics like this for quite a while, because we kind of hinted on it in the blood banks a little bit, and we kind of hinted on it in the season finale of season 1 about beliefs, but we're talking about red rooms. So what are red rooms? If you've ever seen the movie Hostel 1 or 2, that's essentially a red room. Imagine some type of room, right, where you are allowed to literally torture a human being to death in various different ways. Now, the reason why it's called a red room is 1 or 2 reasons. Either 1, because the room itself is painted red, or 2, because you, the creepy weirdo, is about to paint the room red, either because you're a victim or because you are the assailant. So essentially, just imagine a room where you butcher people alive and you torture them to death. That is a red room. Now, where it comes into a conspiracy theory is basically claiming the validity of it or not. It's been said to exist for years now. People talk about, you can find websites of people live streaming it on the dark web and whatnot. Usually that's a resounding no, you can't. That's not there. I don't think there's ever been a case where you could do that either. So that's kind of where it comes into play, is saying, whether or not it's even valid. Is it real, or is this just some kind of urban legend, right? Now, of course, in my opinion, all these kind of things are rooted from something, right? So let's get into that something. So for one, like I mentioned, again, the Franklin case, the Franklin scandal, right? So if you go and you listen to some of the victims' accounts, they will say that, stuff like that kind of sort of does exist in the world, except it's not necessarily in the vein of being a torture room or being a red room for the sake of torturing. It's more or less for sacrifices, for ritualistic purposes that the elites do. And again, this is according to the victims. I hate sounding like Alex Jones sometimes. That's why I have to remind you, I'm not saying this is what the victims say. But anyways, I digress. So, like I said, as mentioned, this is what the people say that the elites get up to. And even then, I think I've shown you some people's artwork, right? I believe Tony Podesta, was it Tony or Mike Podesta? I forgot which one, but one of them, not the actual person in politics, but the brother, right? He was an art collector, and some of his art was kind of creepy. And what people noticed in his art was the background of some of the images, and they noticed that these rooms had drains in them, and some of the people were depicted as butchers while the children were depicted as victims, just kind of almost being in these rooms, and you could look in their faces and they were confused about what was going to happen next. So some people say that this was more than just art. This looked almost like depictions of things that could have happened in real life. Hopefully not, but world's crazy. So when I was younger, I used to hear all these myths and urban legends about people going to foreign countries and basically buying kids. Yeah, or just any type of person. They would go to, of course, the poorest parts of these countries where people don't see money often. They kind of live off the land, not because they want to, but by force. And they live in the outskirts or some very rural out there area, for example, like the Philippines. And there was a man named Peter Scully. Peter Scully was from Australia. He's not a good man. I can't remember it. I think he may have gotten run out of Australia. I can't remember if he left on his own accord or not, but he ended up in the Philippines. And while he was in the Philippines, he had 75 victims under his belt. 75. And what he was doing, he was going out and essentially, I believe, buying these children, again, from these people from these poorer countries. And he was recording, he was filming himself doing things to these children. And I mean, some of the victims were as young as 2 years old, and it was all put together on tapes. So there is actual footage. Now, luckily, it was all confiscated, and Peter Scully went to prison. He was caught eventually. I don't know how he was caught, but he was caught. And again, he had 75 victims, all underage, and it was all in somewhat of a red room format because he's just sitting here recording himself torturing these people. And when I say victims, I mean 75 deceased victims. They're no longer with us. But that leads to the conversation. If one single dude could do this, the red rooms kind of operates in a bigger, grandiose scale, saying that there's billions of dollars backed by, this type of thing. And that's what people are suspecting, is that it's a lot bigger and maybe more hidden than we are led on to believe. Depopulation Funds is a conspiracy theory that speaks about how rich elites, damn, I'm getting tired of saying that, rich elites, good God. Anyways, it says rich elites are literally putting money together and funding different ways to depopulate the planet of humans. And of course, one of the main, contenders of this is Bill Gates. Like, he's one of the main prime suspects because he said things over the years that have made people raise eyebrows, and he's been caught with his finger in a bunch of weird sus pies, if you know what I'm saying. And people don't take too kindly to it, okay? Now, of course, like I said, when it comes to the depopulation funds, people look at certain things, right? One of the big ones, I don't even want to say it, but you know what happened in 2020. So people use that as one of the things that happened, and it was part of depopulating the planet. I don't know if you guys remember, but in like the late 2010s, there was like a lot of talk of like, we're overpopulating the planet. It's overpopulated. There's too many people here. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Overpopulation. Right? And that's one of the many things that they say was part of the depopulation funds, because it's not just depopulating, right? It's also having to get it in your head that it's too many people here, right? Too many people on this planet. And even when you look at something like the Georgia Guidestones, I don't know if you guys remember this, but one of the rules on the Georgia Guidestones was, I think, keep humanity's population at 5 million and below. I may be wrong on that number, but either way, we're way over that number. We're way over that. We're like 8 billion and growing. So this speaks to depopulation, and for various reasons. One, like I said, too many people on the planet. Another reason, though, is it's too many people on the planet, and it's too many people to control. So we need less people and more resources for the rich elites. And then, of course, whatever people remain, you will basically just be their servants, if not some AI robot. Another main reason why that kind of goes along with depopulation funds is more or less like a refinement of human genetics. So in other words, I'm talking about eugenics. If you don't know what eugenics is, it's basically saying that you want to be able to pick and choose the best part of humanity genetics wise, making sure that we pass on the best genes, right? On paper, that kind of sounds cool, right? Make sure that we pass on the best genes and we leave behind genes that humanity no longer needs, right? On paper, it sounds kind of cool, kind of productive. However, if you look through the history of eugenics, it almost always just turns to racism. Every single time it just turns into flat out racism, and it's saying that this race can go forward and this race can't. So that's kind of part of the depopulation as well. Many people, again, bringing up Bill Gates again, many people point the finger at him, saying that he is actively trying to do depopulation. You can find conspiracy theory, like it's literally like conspiracy theory, like inception when it comes to this topic. But you can find other conspiracy theories that go along with the eugenics and the depopulation when it comes to Bill Gates, by people making allegations that he was in foreign countries trying to give out different types of vaccines, like polio vaccines and other vaccines, and people came forth claiming that like the women in these countries somehow became infertile. Again, I'm not implying any of that shit is real. It's allegations. You can look into it on your own, see how you feel about it. But that's essentially depopulation funds. Prison Planets speaks to a theory that says that certain planets themselves are an entire prison. Not only are they an entire prison, but it means that you can never escape that planet. One of these theories even suggests that Earth itself is a prison planet, and it says one of the reasons why we have never had contact with any other alien species is because we're not supposed to, and they're not supposed to have contact with us as well. Now, in another offshoot theory, it also says that we are an incubation planet, meaning that we are not mature enough yet as a society and as a planet-controlling, species to interact with other alien forces, and they don't want to talk to us yet until we get past that incubation. But getting back to the prison planet theory, right? It suggests that we are here for some type of punishment. Now, what the hell I did, I don't know. But that's what it says, is we are on a prison planet, and for some reason, one or the other, humanity did something somewhere out there in the galaxy of space, and we have been essentially pushed to this planet, which would make me think that if we did something bad enough to another planet or another galaxy, that we got pushed here, then that means all other humans from whatever we originated from have gotten eradicated. I don't know. It's a crazy theory, but it says because of that, we will never fully leave this planet. This even goes into certain biblical things in the Bible. You know, how there's a firmament that's essentially some kind of glass dome over the entire planet. And some people even look to the fact that we've had, failures when it comes to rocket launches, saying that, it almost seems like rockets only get so high and then they just explode. Like they hit some kind of weird, invisible, high tech, or even, I guess, spiritual wall, and it can't progress any further out. Now, of course, when you get to this, it's a bunch of different rabbit holes you can go down. You can go down the flat earth thing, saying, we're not supposed to leave or go beyond blankety blank, ice wall or firmament, whatever, right? But that's kind of the overall view of the prison planet thing. It just says that we've been put here by some kind of advanced life forms, potentially even God, and we are meant to stay here. We are not meant to leave this zone. Well, guys, that's gonna do it for Tier 3 and Tier 4. I'll see you back on the next episode. And the next episode is going to be a combo as well. We're going to do Tier 5 and we're going to do Tier 6. But as always, I'm going to post, these tiers right here. So if you see anything that you like and you want to get into, let me know. And just comment that conspiracy theory below. We'll jump into it. If it's enough meat on that conspiracy theory, I'll make a solo video for it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you a heads up. Chances are you're probably not going to see that until like season 4, because season 2 is just going to be going through the iceberg, right? Top to bottom. Season 3, you can't see it, but I got a whiteboard over here with my ideas. And season 3, we pretty much got all the topics we want to cover. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We got at least 6 topics on the board. I may try to aim for 8. We'll see. But yeah, so like I said, it's not going to be till season 4. But nay, patience is a virtue. So put it in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, because we are starving for all of that. We're a new-ish channel, I guess you could say. But yeah, we need more viewership, and we hope you guys enjoy the videos. So without, further yappage, that's about it for the video. So, that's it. We're going to be moving forward. Hope you guys had a fantastic day. Hope you liked the video. Comment below. Like I said, share your ideas. Let's have some discussions. I want to see y'all talking amongst each other. I want to see that. I want to see discussions. How much of this sounded like cuckoo, caca, boo-boo, and how much is like, I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to lay flat and breathe crazy for an hour. Who knows? Anyways, that's all we got for today. We'll see you guys in the next one. Holler.